The first scream didn't sound human. It tore through the quiet California night like something feral, sharp, ragged, and full of a kind of terror that didn't belong to anything living. It echoed off the hills, rolled across the empty road, and then stopped, not faded, not died down, just cut off, like a throat suddenly closed. Mark Ellison lowered his camera. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Beside him, Jess froze mid-step, her flashlight beam trembling slightly as it skimmed across the rusted guardrail and into the blackness beyond. "Yeah," she said, her voice tight. "That wasn't a coyote." "No," Mark muttered. "Coyotes don't do that." The wind picked up, whispering through the dry brush along the roadside. Somewhere far below, waves crashed faintly against unseen cliffs. Highway 1 stretched behind them in a long, empty ribbon, no headlights, no movement, just darkness swallowing everything. Mark lifted his camera again, instinctively recording. "Say something," Jess said. "For the video." Mark hesitated, then forced a half-smile. "All right, it's 11:42 p.m. We're about 10 miles north of Big Sur, near that abandoned turnout people keep talking about online." He gestured behind him. "We just heard a scream that definitely wasn't normal." Jess swung her flashlight toward the hillside. "Maybe someone's hurt," she said. "We should check." Mark didn't move. The scream echoed again in his head, too sudden, too wrong. "Or maybe we shouldn't," he said quietly. Jess looked at him. "What if someone needs help?" Another silence fell between them, heavy, pressing. Then, from somewhere below the road, something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just the faint crunch of gravel. Both of them snapped their heads toward the sound. "Hello?" Jess called out. No answer. She took a step toward the edge, angling her flashlight down into the darkness. The beam caught patches of dirt, broken rock, and then movement. Something slipped just out of view. Jess sucked in a breath. "Did you see that?" Mark nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, her voice steadier now, like she'd made up her mind. "We're going down there." Mark grabbed her arm. "Jess, if that was a person." "And if it wasn't?" he snapped. She hesitated. That same silence stretched again, thicker this time. Then from below, a voice drifted up, soft, weak. "Help me." Jess's expression changed instantly. "That's a person." Mark felt his stomach tighten. The voice came again, barely audible. "Please." Jess pulled free of his grip. "We can't just leave." Mark swallowed hard, then adjusted his camera strap. "Fine," he said, "but we stick together." They climbed over the guardrail and started down the slope, loose dirt sliding under their shoes. The beam of Jess's flashlight bounced wildly as they descended, catching glimpses of scrubby plants and jagged rocks. "Keep talking," Jess shouted. "We're coming!" No reply. "Hey," Mark called. "Where are you?" "Nothing." They reached a narrow ledge where the slope leveled out slightly. The ocean was louder here, the crash of waves rising up from the darkness below. Jess swept the flashlight back and forth. "Hello?" Still nothing. Mark frowned. "That's weird." "What?" They were just calling for help. Jess didn't answer. She was staring at something ahead. "What?" Mark asked. She slowly raised her flashlight. The beam landed on a figure. Someone was sitting on a rock about 20 feet away, their back to them. Relief washed over Jess. "Oh, my God," she breathed. "Hey, are you okay?" The figure didn't move. Jess took a step forward. "We heard you screaming." Mark felt something cold creep into his chest. "Jess, wait." She ignored him, moving closer. "Hey, it's okay. We're here to help." The figure's head tilted slightly, not turning, not looking, just tilting. Mark's grip tightened on his camera. "Do you need—" Jess stopped mid-sentence because the person was laughing, not loud, not hysterical, just a low, quiet laugh, like someone chuckling to themselves in the dark. Jess froze. Mark whispered, "Let's go." But it was too late. The figure turned. The flashlight hit their face, and Jess screamed, because it wasn't a face. Not really. The skin looked stretched, too tight in some places, sagging in others, like it had been pulled and rearranged incorrectly. The eyes were wide, unblinking, reflecting the light in a way that didn't look human at all. And the mouth was smiling far too wide. "You came," it said. The voice was wrong. Too many tones layered together. Too deep, too high, like several voices trying to speak at once. Mark stumbled backward. "Jess, run!" But she couldn't move. The thing stood up slowly, its limbs bending just slightly too far at the joints. "You heard me," it continued, tilting its head again. "That means you wanted to find me." Jess shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "No, we just thought you thought I was someone else." The smile widened. "I was." Mark grabbed Jess's arm and pulled hard. "Run!" This time, she moved. They scrambled back up the slope, dirt sliding beneath them, hands grabbing at anything solid. Behind them, the thing didn't chase, not at first. It just laughed. That same quiet, broken laugh. Halfway up, Mark risked a glance back. The ledge was empty. His stomach dropped. "Jess," he gasped, "don't stop." They reached the guard rail, hauling themselves over it and stumbling onto the road. "Get in the car," Mark said, fumbling for his keys. Jess yanked open the passenger door and dove inside. Mark slid into the driver's seat, hand shaking so badly he almost dropped the keys. "Go, go, go!" Jess shouted. The engine roared to life. Mark slammed his foot on the gas. As the car sped down the empty highway, neither of them spoke. For a long time, there was only the sound of the engine and their ragged breathing. Then Jess whispered, "What was that?" Mark didn't answer. He couldn't, because in the rearview mirror, something was sitting in the back seat, smiling. In Northern California, about 40 miles outside Redding, there's a stretch of forest locals avoid after sunset. They don't put up signs. They don't block the roads. They just don't go there. If you ask why, most of them will shrug it off. "Nothing out there," they'll say. But sometimes, if you catch someone in the right mood or the wrong one, they'll tell you about the fire road and the man who never made it back. Ethan Cole had never believed in ghost stories. He was a wildlife photographer, used to long nights in the wilderness, used to strange sounds and unexplained movements. To him, everything had a logical explanation, until the night his camera caught something that shouldn't exist. He'd been tracking a mountain lion for 3 days. It had been spotted near a remote fire road, deep in a stretch of forest so dense sunlight barely touched the ground. Ethan had set up camp nearby, hoping to catch it on film. On the 3rd night, he got his chance. Or at least, he thought he did. It started with a sound, a low growl. Ethan grabbed his camera, moving quietly through the trees toward the source. His flashlight stayed off. He didn't want to scare it away. The growl came again, louder this time. Closer. Ethan raised his camera, adjusting the settings. Then he saw it, a shape moving between the trees, low to the ground, large. His pulse quickened. "Got you," he whispered. He pressed the shutter. The flash lit up the forest for a split second, and in that instant, he realized something was wrong. The shape didn't look like a mountain lion. It stood upright. Ethan froze. The darkness swallowed everything again. His heart pounded in his ears. "Hello?" he called cautiously. No response. Then footsteps, heavy, deliberate, circling him. Ethan turned slowly, trying to track the sound. "Okay," he muttered, more to himself than anything. "Just an animal." But animals didn't walk like that, and they didn't breathe like that either. A hot, wet breath brushed against the back of his neck. Ethan spun around. Nothing. His chest tightened. "I know you're there," he said, his voice trembling despite his effort to stay calm. Something moved to his left. He swung the camera. Flash. For a fraction of a second, the forest lit up again. And this time, he saw it clearly. A man standing between the trees, except not a man. Too tall, too thin. Its arms hung too low, fingers nearly touching the ground. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, like its neck couldn't quite support it. And its eyes, they reflected the flash like an animal's. Ethan staggered back. What the hell? The thing took a step forward. Its joints cracked audibly. And then it spoke. "You're not supposed to be here." Ethan turned and ran. Branches tore at his clothes as he crashed through the forest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, he could hear it moving, fast, far too fast for something that size. "Leave," it called. Its voice echoed unnaturally, like it was coming from all directions at once. Ethan burst onto the fire road, sprinting toward his truck. The headlights flickered in the distance. Come on," he muttered, fumbling for his keys. Behind him, the forest went silent. Too silent. He froze. Slowly, he turned around. The tree line stood still and dark. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. For a moment, he thought, maybe it was over. Then something stepped out of the trees. Not running, not rushing, just walking slowly, deliberately. Ethan's hand shook as he unlocked the truck and jumped inside. The engine roared to life. He slammed the door, locking it immediately. The thing kept walking toward him, its head tilted again. Just like before, Ethan threw the truck into gear. As he sped down the fire road, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure stood in the middle of the road, watching him go. But it didn't disappear. It didn't fade into the darkness. It just stood there. And even as the distance grew, Ethan could still see its eyes, reflecting, watching, waiting. By the time police found Ethan's truck the next morning, it was empty. The driver's door was open, the engine was still running, and his camera was sitting on the passenger seat, still recording.